What's up, y'all? This is Zach with Living Corporate and doing something a little bit different. I'm really excited about this. You know, the reality is that we have a ton of content, right? A lot of content because we have plenty of people who want to be on the show, and everything can't get aired as soon as we record it. So, we have a bit of a vault. Every, show that has a vault. And so we're going to let some stuff out the vault for Christmas because we love y'all. And so what you're about to hear is a conversation from our vault as a part of our 12 Days of Podcast campaign. This is one of those shows. Make sure you check it out. I'm really excited about whoever you're about to hear. Before we get there, we're going to tap in with Tristan, and we'll be back.
What's going on, y'all? It's Tristan of Layfield Resume Consulting, and I've teamed up with Living Corporate to bring you a weekly career tip. Today, we're going to dive into an effective cover letter method that will better help you sell yourself to your future employer. One of the questions I'm asked quite often is, are cover letters still a thing? And my answer to that question is always yes. A cover letter can set you apart from other candidates who don't submit one. It also allows you the space to sell yourself, explain your situation, and even sometimes seal the deal. There are many ways to write a cover letter. Let's focus on one I find to be most effective. Number 1, address a person. Hiring managers and recruiters hate to see the generic greeting of "to whom it may concern." Do your Googles and try to find out who the hiring manager is and address them directly. If you can't find the name, consider addressing it to the department or committee. Number 2, identify a problem. Let's be real here. Companies could care less about what you want out of this or what you're excited for. They want to know if you can solve issues for them, and the only way to do that is to identify an issue that may be plaguing them specifically or the general industry. So identify the problem that you have experience in or experience solving. Number 3, exploit that problem. Now that you've identified the problem, remind them of how irritating their problem is and how great a solution would be. Number 4, offer a solution. And if you haven't figured it out by now, the solution is you, your experience, and your expertise. Go beyond what you've written in your resume and explain to them why you are the best candidate, not only for the job, but to help them solve their problem. And number 5, tie it together strong. Your conclusion is a great spot to reiterate your interest and confidence, then close with a call of action such as, "I look forward to the opportunity to discuss how we can leverage my abilities as an asset to your organization." A well-written strategic cover letter can't ever hurt, but just make sure you aren't sending out a generic one for every job you apply to. This tip was brought to you by Tristan of Layfield Resume Consulting. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Layfield Resume, or connect with me, Tristan Layfield, on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining me. I'll be talking to you again soon.
We have Tyson Bonty on the show. Tyson, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Zach? How you doing?
Man, I'm just out here trying to put it together, man.
I hear you,
man. So let's do this, man. Every time we have a guest on, as opposed to me reading off some long bio, man, I just want to give you some space to tell us about yourself for those of us who may not know you.
Sure. Yeah. I'm out here in the DFW area. I guess you could say I'm a corporate executive. I got lots of deep experience working in technology. It wasn't the traditional path that I took, but you could say that I've kind of started there, and then now it's evolved, and I'm in this new space of entrepreneur, and I'm having lots of fun right now. And it's funny that it just kind of turned into where I am, and it's all connected to my story,
Well, let's get into your story. And you kind of alluded to it just now, but when you talk about your executive background, right? Like, a lot of your profession is all in technology, tech strategy, org transformation, operations. Let's talk a little bit about, what that journey was like, and then what this entrepreneurship pivot is, and then what you've been doing in this new space as an entrepreneur.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess you could say, I lived my younger years in South Central Los Angeles, then kind of transitioned out and lived and grew up in the suburbs. We weren't poor. We weren't rich. I guess you could kind of say it was like lower middle class, blue collar family. and I'm a first generation college graduate. Didn't go right out of high school. I just was more in the space where I grew up, where you just went to school and you just got a job and you just worked. And it was kind of interesting because it was just one of those things where you didn't see anything beyond what was just around you, so you just did whatever you saw. And if you saw people just working, you just worked. And it wasn't a background of people that were educated or had college degrees. You just got a job, and that's what I did. And from there, I went just worked for several years in the construction business and did that for a while. And somehow I had this desire to want to go back to school. I decided to go back to school much later in my years and got a bachelor's degree, then ended up getting an MBA and landed in this space of the corporate world. So moving from a blue collar to a corporate professional, and actually from there just kind of navigated my way into technology and moved my way up to a vice president, which that was an interesting experience, I could tell you.
Well, what made it interesting? I mean, I would say, first of all, like just that transition from blue collar to like a more C-suite type space is certainly unique. But I can also say, like, I have seen 4 or 5, I think, in my whole life. I think let me take that back. I've met 5 black men. I'm saying in my whole life across like, all these different industries that I've been exposed to or worked in as a consultant. And then before consulting as an HR professional and HR business partner, I think I've met like 4 or 5 black men who were in like vice president positions. So what was that like? Like, what is it like existing in that space? What was it like for you?
Well, the funny thing is, before I even got there, I was kind of, I guess you'd define it more as middle management. So sitting in middle management at a manager, director type of role, and never really saw myself anything beyond that. One of the things is you don't see anybody that looks like you in any of those roles, any organizations you're in. So you just assume that's where you are, and that's where at least that's where my head was at. And it was funny. One day I was sitting in an office with my boss, and I'm just looking at the work and the stuff he's doing, and it just hit me. It just kind of weird. It just hit me and said, you know what? I can do this guy's job. And somehow it was like I had this vision of myself being in that role. And from then on, I just kind of just took the bull by his reins and just stepped into that and ended up working my way and getting promoted to a vice president. And that completely opened myself up to a completely different world where now you're sitting in conference rooms and having conversations with people at a different level that, call the shots and have a lot more, leverage to make a lot of decisions in an organization just by having a couple initials behind their name. And that was a pretty big shock for myself. And then sitting in that space, and you look around and you're like the only one of color that's sitting at the table. And yeah, at the same time, it's a great experience, but it's also a little lonely up there because you don't have anybody else.
And so in those moments, right, like when, you talk about the loneliness, because it's interesting you talk about it being lonely up there, it's funny because I am in middle management, right? And it's lonely for me right here. So what was it like for you to manage the loneliness? Like, did you have, like a support system? Did you have like, if I may ask you, like a therapist, or like what did it look like for you to manage that?
You end up finding out you kind of need somebody. You need somebody that you can kind of talk to and bounce off. And I ended up connecting with another brother that was at that level. And it's like something about it. You're able to connect and start talking about things that you feel like you can't talk to with anybody else. And to give you an example, I'd be sitting in a conference room and having that conversation. And in the back of my mind, we're all going around and throwing ideas on the table. And because I'm, the only black man at the table, I'm almost self-conscious or trying to make sure I speak right, make sure I speak clear, make sure my voice is heard, try to stay as intelligent as you can at the table and not be intimidated by being the only black person at the table and everybody else is white. It's a little bit of a distraction because you're trying to solve problems and show your value to the organization. But at the same time, you're trying to say, hey, you know what? I deserve to be here too. So you're in the back of my mind. I'm also trying to make sure I can fit in, I guess, if that's the right way to say it.
Well, no, and I mean, it also sounds like a little bit of imposter syndrome too, right? Like, it's like, how do I make sure that I affirm that I belong here, right? And so it's easy to kind of get in your own head. I know it happens for me, often, more often than I'd like to admit. But I'm curious. So you talked about the fact that, that's what you were doing, but now you've transitioned into entrepreneurship. So what is
so it's kind of a weird thing. So
yeah,
while I was in that role, I started having a lot of people come to me of color and wanted me to be a mentor. And I could tell you, I'm a vice president, and you have this view where people say, hey, this dude made it. He did something right. He got it all figured out. And they're coming to me. And in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, I'm still trying to figure this out myself.
right.
What do I have to offer? But I opened myself up, started mentoring some of these young guys in the company and recognized that they didn't see themselves beyond where they were. Like, yeah, you were lucky, but that'll never be me. And it was like a little bit of a shock to myself because I'm like, dude, you can do this. You guys can do this too. This is not, once you get there, you feel like it's just more about navigating relationships and knowing how to play the game, learning some of the unwritten rules that nobody tells you about when you're in an organization, and just know how to function in it and connect with the people that make the decisions. So you just learn how to navigate and mentoring some of these young guys, kind of helping them work through that, made me realize that there's value in being able to visualize yourself in those roles.
So you having people reach out to you, asking for mentorship, asking for support.
So I'm doing it. So I'm mentoring, I'm meeting with people and giving them guidance and helping them with a plan and introducing them to people, and got a couple people promoted. It was good. It was good. But then I had this thought, and this thought was, I need to be doing more. I just feel like, yeah, this is good for this company, but I feel like I need to be doing more. So then I had this, this is almost a crazy thing, is I woke up one day and I had this dream. And this dream was more of a vision that I had, that I started this clothing company. And the clothing company was about these two illustrations of an African-American male and an African-American female in different professions or doing different out of the ordinary things, to basically send the message out that you can be anything you want, you can do anything you want. And this happened maybe about almost 4 years ago. I wrote it down, just kind of thought about it, and it came to me just clear as day. And I know nothing about the apparel industry. My sweet spot is software development, and been doing that for 15 plus years, 15, 20 plus years. And lo and behold, maybe a few months ago, the organization goes through some changes and they let me go. They said, thanks for your services. We're going to do something else. We don't need you. And during that time, I just had to say, you know what? I'm going to take a shot at this. So I ended up launching this business, launching this clothing brand. And now the brand is more about sending out the message and communicating that we can be anything, we can do anything. And it's all about visualization. So visualization is more being able to visualize and see yourself in doing that thing, in that role, and it becomes real. And I believe everybody has a gift. Everybody has greatness inside of them, but it's more just tapping into that. And being able to visualize and see yourself doing that makes it more real and helps people achieve their dreams. And that's kind of the beginning of where I am right now. So
let's talk about the initiative. Like, what's the name of the company? Let's talk about some of the shirts. Like, let's get into it for folks so they can look it up. We'll make sure we'll put all the information in the show notes. But what's the name of the company?
So the name of the company is Joss and Jess. The site is jossandjess.com, and the motto and the message is be anything, do anything. And so right now I'm going around and I'm just showing the value that being able to visualize and see what you can be and do is the message itself. And when you can start seeing that, and the two things, I started with a couple shirts, basically have two characters on. One of them is an African-American male and he's a pilot. The other one is African-American female and she's an astronaut. And the idea is that there'll be iterations of that where they'll be in different roles and doing all these extra, out of the ordinary things, but you're able to visually see it and you're walking around and you're wearing it. And the more that you can visually see and carry that, it almost translates into success. And that's really is what it's all about. And so I'm going around sharing that message. I'm talking to high school kids. I'm talking to college kids. I'm talking to HBCUs and corporations. And the whole idea is more wrapped around helping people achieve their dreams and helping people achieve their success and using apparel to drive that.
And so then, let's talk more about the company. So, at what point, as you were building this, did you realize, this is something that's real and that's something that's that is sustainable and that's making an impact outside of a handful of people?
It's been launched and it's probably been in existence for 2 months. So it's super, super green. I'm bootstrapping right now. What's making it real is as I just got off the phone with a local HBCU and they're like, wow, this is so cool. I want to have a conversation with you. And I think what it's actually doing is typically helping people see that what it does is you wear it and then you show that can be me, that can be anybody that looks like us. There's not enough black pilots I don't see. There's not enough black astronauts. But I think if you start visualizing and showing that you can see that, then it becomes something that's more real.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's interesting because I never forget, and I was, this was some years ago, I was partnering with a nonprofit organization called Genesis Works. They do internships for high school students, essentially getting them exposure into corporate America before they even go to college, just to open their eyes and see that there's possibility for them, right? And it's just curious because I recall when I was working I was doing an office tour. I'm at a company that I was working for at the time, and they just were in the office and they saw me and they were also there in this really open concept office, which I thought was it's a consulting firm. It's a cool office, whatever. But their eyes were just huge. They just had never, again, just because of how just white supremacy works and just segregation has still been upheld for the past 50 some odd years. Even though some of these kids only live around the corner, they've never even been in the building before. So they're over here just this looks like the future, what is going on? And I just remember they asked me so you really work here? What do you do here? You really do that? You really do that? And so it's easy, depending on where you sit on the privilege pyramid, to underestimate how powerful it is just to see yourself represented in these spaces and just what that can do and how that can open your mind. That's incredible. Even me, I'll have to say, I'm kind of dang, it's a shirt, but I'm nah, that's incredible because I remember there was a time when I couldn't imagine me, being a consultant. I remember when I was in high school, I said, I want to be a consultant. And my high school career counselor said, you'll never be a consultant. That's for people who come from money and have a bunch of technical experience, or who are old. You're too young. You'll never do that. Right? And so, it's just incredible. Well, let's do this. Let's talk about
the interesting thing, it's funny that you say that. So for me, it's more, I didn't even know to think like that because all I could think about was just the things that I saw around me. And so you had friends that were just working low wage jobs or hustling just to get by. So that's all you saw. So you didn't see anything beyond that. And so it's kind of helping someone see more than what they are either exposed to, told, or surrounded by, whether it's the environment or whatever it is. Yeah, you can dream bigger than that. You can do more than that. It's almost taking a dream and kind of translating it into something that you press in your mind, that when you see someone, an example is the shirt, you see someone on the shirt that looks like you, and they're representing themselves on the shirt in a role that if I typically get on a plane, I won't see anybody that looks like me on the plane that's flying the plane. Maybe I see one every now and then, but as the typical norm, I won't. But if I see that over and over again, somehow it translates into something that maybe is achievable and attainable.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that's just a super fair point in that a lot of times you have to, they the saying, you have to see it to be it, right? You have no idea what that even is because you never even imagined that before, right? Like some of these concepts, like even some of these jobs, you know, some like when I talk to folks, I mean, even when I talk to like black and brown folks who are closer to my age, and they don't even know what consulting is, right? I mean, if I say be a consultant, I might as well be saying be an astrophysicist, right? It's like, what is that, right? And so just that exposure is really important.
It's almost like you got to have a way to be able to see yourself in that role or whatever that is. And once you can see yourself, it makes it more real and attainable. Because I don't know if you know the story of Michelangelo when he did the sculpture of David.
No.
And one of the things he talked about was, he said when he saw it was just a slab of marble, he said he saw an angel. And then he started carving it until he set him free. So it's almost like he created this, it was this visual image in his head that allowed him to visualize something that he didn't even know existed yet, that was just inside this slab of marble. And it was just talking about the power of visualization, being able to visualize and see something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be there, because your subconscious mind goes back and forth and it can't tell the difference between, you know, things that are real and things that are not real. Right. But if you can visualize that, it becomes more achievable and attainable.
Man, this has been a dope conversation, man. So really, really quick, before we get up out of here, I really want to make sure everyone, and again, we will have in the show notes, but I want you to just plug your company and the website and all the information one more time.
Yeah. jossandjess.com, and be anything, do anything. That's what it's about. It's about wearing the clothing and the brand and showing that, you know, society, the world, that we can be anything we want. We can do anything we want. And the only thing that stops us is us.
Man, I love that. I love that. Tyson Bonty, man, it's been a dope conversation. We appreciate you, man. Y'all, this has been Zach with Living Corporate, man. You've been listening to Tyson Bonty, entrepreneur, public speaker, educator, mentor. Till next time, y'all. Peace. All right, and we're back. Listen, again, I hope this holiday season is treating you well. I know that the holidays are not the most joyous time for everybody. I hope that you're able to find some peace and some restoration during the season as we get ready for hopefully what will be a better new year. Until next time, this has been Zach. Make sure you give us 5 stars on that good old Apple Podcasts. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.